Welcome back. In the previous video we saw how to organize all of your elements. So in this video we'll start actually working. So a couple of things I want to do first. I want to basically have the option to hide everything in one go. Just going to create a new layer. So I'm going to hover my mouse over my display layers and click. It's going to create a new layer, and we just call this layer GEO. So I know that's actually layer arm, and save. So now I can hide everything if I want to. Alright, so I'm going to hide everything, and now I'm going to go to joints. I'm going to just shift P, and I'm going to go to everything that says FK on it, and probably the shoulder as well, which says IK, but I'll change the name. So I'm going to shift P. So I've just taken everything out of the main group, and the reason I did that was just so I can start working. So first thing, I'm going to change the name because I want everything to be consistent. So that's an FK setup. Alright, so forward kinematics, we'll talk about that in a minute. Alright, I'm going to duplicate my Control D, and then now I could take the original and just put it back into its group. We can close that. There we go. Alright, so I got a duplicate of the entire chain because what I'm going to do is create a separate rig to the main joint system. Now, why are we going to do this? Basically, what you want to do when you create a complex rig, especially one that has a switch in it, you want to kind of layer everything in. What I'm going to do now is start the layering process by just creating separate rigs and then eventually connecting all of them up. And that's how we're going to create our switch. So first thing I'm going to do is grab the shoulder blade or the shoulder joint and shift P, and then I could delete the neck joint over there. Now we can delete the thumb and all the fingers, which will leave us just the wrist, the forearm, the elbow, and the shoulder. Alright. So if you know anything about how Maya works, basically a joint system or a joint chain is just a parenting system. So what I have is a shoulder, and that's the great great grandfather, and then we got a great great grandfather, then a grandfather, then a father, and then a son. So it's just a hierarchy, and it's just parenting. So if I go now and take the hand and put it underneath the the elbow, all right, and I did that using middle mouse button and dragging into what I wanted to do here in the outliner, you'll see that if I open up, we're getting the same sort of display in the outliner. I could also do the same thing by choosing the elbow and choosing the shoulder and just pressing P on my keyboard. That will do the same thing. So I'm getting, again, we're getting a grandfather, a son, a father, and a son. All right, so each one of these is basically now a chain. So we have two chains. Now we can go ahead and connect them up. In Maya, there's two ways of connecting things up. And the question is, what exactly are we connecting? So let's just take a step back and see that. So basically we have these chains, which is parenting, and in a way it's connecting the objects together, but they're not really being connected. They are just sitting inside each other. They kind of the analogy that I could make that might make it some sort of sense, it's like a babushka doll, like those dolls that nest other dolls inside. So when you move the top doll, the smaller dolls move with it, but if you pull them out, they will not move with it. So this is kind of the same thing. And joints and any object that is parented underneath those are basically a chain of or hierarchy of objects. Now, sometimes we want to move one object and it will move another object. To do that, we can use or a direct connect. That means we take the channels over here, let's say transfer, rotate, and scale, and we connect it directly to the transform, rotate, and scale of another object. Each one of those comes with its own price and how how you need to do that, and we'll talk about that later on. But for now, we're going to use something called a constraint. And what a constraint does is basically that we got, if I just tear up the constraint window or menu set, you'll see that basically the constraint, we have a parent constraint, which it's confusing because it's called parent, but it's not. It's basically channel to channel constraint, and it will constrain between the translation and rotation of an object to another translation rotation of another object. And the same goes for point constraints, which will only do translation, and orientation will do the rotation, and scale to the scale. And then we have specialized ones, which is aim and pull vector, which we'll talk about later. So with that being said, and we're already 6 minutes into this video and I haven't really connected anything up, what I'm going to use is a orient constraint. Now, why an orient? No, actually, we'll just use a parent constraint. So we're going to use a parent constraint. So I'm just going to grab the controller to the thing I want to control, which is the bone, because I want the controller, the control curve to connect to the bone, and just press P, and then I'm going to test it out. So just make sure that you click outside so nothing's selected, and then select the one that you want to test out, and you see now these two are connected, and you can tell because this has gone purple. Alright, so I'm going to choose this one here, which is not moving anything, the elbow control, to the elbow joint and parent constraint, and now you'll see that this is turned purple, and I can move it up and down, and it's not working. There we go. Alright, so I've apparently locked something, so just alright, fixed whatever I needed to fix. Alright, so this is working, everything looks good. So we move down the chain, and now we're going to do the same thing to the wrist control. So we're just going to do a parent constraint. So I've tested everything out. I see that it works. If we look in the outliner, we look here, we can actually see the constraints. So these are the icons for constraints, and you'll see what kind of constraint it is. Alright, with that being said, we are finished with our forward kinematics, which will allow us to pose our character going down the chain.